Hey guys, today we're going to take a look at how to express uncertainty. So we're going to express uncertainty using questions. And our question words are words such as itsu, dare, nani, donna, doshite, naze, and so on. And we're going to attach one of those question words to our sentence in plain form with the particle ka attached, and we're going to finish with one of three verbs: shirimasen, wakarimasen, and oboeteimasen. So let's take a look here at our first example. I don't remember where I put it. Doko ni oita ka oboete inai yo. In this case, our question word is doko, which is where, and our sentence, which is in plain form, as we can see here, oita, means to put something, and we've followed that with ka, and then we've attached our verb oboete inai, which means I don't remember, and we can see here that it's in its plain form also. In our second example, I don't know when the train leaves. 電車は itsu deru ka shirimasen. So our question word in this case is itsu, and that means when. And our sentence in plain form is simply the verb deru, which means to leave or to depart. And we've finished with our verb shirimasen. So that is the polite form of the verb don't know. In our third example, I don't yet know how I'm going there. どうやってそこに行くか Mada wakarimasen. どうやって means how, and that's our question word. And our sentence in plain form is そこに行くか. So 行く is our verb in its plain form. And then we're going to finish with mada wakarimasen, which means I don't know yet. And then our fourth example, I don't know who bought the tickets. 誰が切符を買ったか知らないよ. In this case, our question word is the word 誰, which means who. And our sentence in plain form is 切符を買ったか. And our final verb here is 知らない, I don't know. And finally, I don't know why the ekiben is tasteless. なぜ駅弁はまずいかわからない. So again, our question word here is the word naze, which means why, and our sentence in plain form is ekiben wa mazui ka. So mazui is actually an adjective, and we've finished with our verb wakaranai, I don't know. Now, in order to express uncertainty using verbs and adjectives, we're going to put both into their plain form and attach the word kadoka, followed by one of those three words again: shirimasen, wakarimasen, and oboeteimasen. So let's take a look at the first example. I don't know if I'm going to Japan next year or not. Or I don't know whether I'm going to Japan next year or not. 来年日本に行くかどうかわかりません. So we have our verb here in its plain form, followed by かどうか and finished with the word わかりません, which means I don't know. So 行くかどうか, whether or not I will go. Wakarimasen, I don't know. In our second example, do you know if Miss Honda stayed in that ryokan? And a ryokan is a Japanese style hotel. Honda-sanがそのryokanに泊まったかどうかわかりませんか? So what you'll notice about this particular example is that in this case it's a question as opposed to a statement. So we're finishing our question with ka. So we have here our verb in its plain form, tomatta, and it's also in its past tense. And we've attached kadoka, so whether or not they stayed. And then we finish with wakarimasen, which means I don't know. So I don't know whether or not they stayed. And in our final example, as for the steak at that restaurant, I don't know whether it is delicious or not. あのレストランのステーキが美味しいかどうか知りません. So in this case, we're using an adjective, oishi, which means delicious, and we've attached kadoka to that adjective. So it changes from delicious to whether or not it is delicious. And then we finished with shirimasen, which again means I don't know. Now, to do the same thing using a noun or a na adjective, what we need to do is, if the sentence is in its present tense, we're going to simply attach kadoka to the noun or na adjective and finish with shirimasen, wakarimasen, or oboeteimasen. And if the sentence is in its past tense, we're going to do the same thing, except after our noun or na adjective, we're going to insert the past tense of the word des, and that is datta. Datta is the plain past tense of des. So for example, I don't know whether Kylie Minogue is famous in Japan or not. So in this case, we have a sentence in its present tense, is famous. So we have Kylie Minogue ga Nihon de yume ka dou ka shirimasen. So the adjective here is yume, it's a nut adjective, and we've simply attached it to kadoka, and we have the verb shirimasen. So in this case, it means I don't know whether or not she is famous. In our next example, I have no idea if Mr. Kitayama is a good person or not. Kitayama-san ga ii hito ka dou ka shirimasen yo. So in this case, we have a noun, which is ii hito, and we've attached it to kadoka, whether or not they are a good person. In our next example, I don't remember whether that town was quiet or not. We can see here that our sentence is in its past tense. I don't remember whether that town was quiet or not. その町が静かだったかどうか覚えていません. So we have here the nut adjective shizuka, and we've attached it to the word datta, which is the plain past tense of des, and then we've attached kadoka. Shizuka datta kadoka, whether or not it was quiet. And then our final example, again in past tense. Do you know whether or not Akiko used to be a nurse? Akiko-san ga kangofu datta ka dou ka shite imasu ka? So kangofu means nurse, so that's our noun, and we've attached it to the plain past tense of des, which is datta, and again attached it to kadoka. Kangofu datta kadoka, whether or not she was a nurse. Now please note that the final verb can also be positive when asking a whether or not question, as in the last example. So you can see here in the last example that shite imasu is in its positive state, not negative, as in the previous examples. And that's because we're asking a question in this case. So we change our verb into its positive state. Now, to say that I don't know whether it is this or that, so we're talking about two different things and we don't know whether it's one thing or another thing, we simply put those two things together in the sentence and link them together with the particle ka. So for example, I don't know if Mr. Parker is British or American. So the two things that we are deciding between, which is whether he's American or British, are linked together with the particle ka. For example, Parker-san ga Igirisu jin ka America jin ka shirimasen. And I don't know yet whether I'll go to Japan this year or next year. Nihon e kotoshi iku ka rainen iku ka mada wakarimasen. So in this case, ka means or. And you'll also notice here that we're using the plain state of the verb iku before we add ka. So that's about all for this topic, but if you have any questions or comments, please let me know.